don't know me, welcome. For the new people, I give you a heartfelt welcome to our center. We are part of the Agape Association of Communities, an affiliate of Agape International Spiritual Center. And we are here to celebrate the glory of the kingdom of heaven, that is God. I do want to take a moment. Some of you know that this past week, my mother-in-law made her transition. She is now dancing on the other side of the veil, soaring with the angels, and soaring with a lot of amazing people that ushered her in. I know this to be the truth. It's not a theory. It's not a kind saying. It's the absolute truth. And so, for some of you know, Jerome is not a big fan of PDA, so I'm going to keep this really brief. But this is his beloved mother. So if we could just, the best thing I think we could do is just, it's always for those of us who are on this side of the veil. These are the ones that need the love and the support. And I've got to say, I've never seen a more beautiful relationship. A son that loved his mother from the moon and back and even beyond. The best son I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying it because I've known him for 30 years. Just absolutely glorious. So I bow to you, and I know that can be challenging to receive that, but I just want you to know how much I love you and how much your mom loves you. And so if you could just hold them in your heart, the family, in your prayers, and just shower them with love. Because as Stacy's song, and we're not going to do the hands thing, because it might be a little too much right now, but I want to just hold you in our hearts and prayers. And say, know that she is absolutely soaring. And so we're just blessing them. And as the song says, and as our teachings teach, we walk in the glory of God, the kingdom of heaven, every day. And as the theme, or the theme of the month is wisdom and willingness, or willingness and wisdom. And then also today we are talking about cultivating heaven. And as part of the Agape Association of Communities, what we believe in is the golden thread that unites all of the truth teachings from around the world. What you may or may not know is the truth teachings, the golden thread found in every single religion, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, shamanism, and all the indigenous teachings. There's a golden thread of truth that rises above dogma, that rises above the intellect, and it is in the realm of the mysticism, mystical teachings. There is where they all join and they all rejoice and they celebrate the truth that sets us free, that there is a God of grace, of beauty, of love back of everything, that we are all born in the image and likeness of, and that we are all the chosen people, if we so choose. And to choose, because we are in the human realm, we have to choose. We have the gift of free will and free choice. What do you think that is for? Are you here? Are you here today to join me? Because when we come together here, part of what our job here is to stimulate and activate that we are growing and expanding in the holy light of infinite truth in our beingness so that we may create heaven on earth. So are you here joining me today? Do you agree that we are going to grow in benevolent and beautiful ways? Yes. Yes, this is what we do here. Yes. That's what we do. We do, and I will tell you, it is, sometimes it's a humbling process, and sometimes it's a dynamic process. And either way you slice it, we must choose to cultivate heaven on earth. We must choose to cultivate heaven. Heaven, as we know, is not a place. It is a state of consciousness. It is God realization in your own beingness. When you realize the divine within your bones, in your consciousness, in your cells and tissues, you are experiencing or beginning to tap and touch the veil of that divine consciousness within your own beingness, which can, in its ultimate, feel like bliss. It is nirvana. So our job, every job, and if you look at the tenets, if you look at the true teachings of every religion, you will find that there is a course to enlightenment, to self-realization, to wholeness. And that course to wholeness is covered by two things. One is we heal things, we heal misperceptions, we heal erroneous beliefs, and we move towards wholeness by healing, and we activate and we participate. So that's what cultivating is. Cultivating is allowing ourselves to move into that, and we must once in a while, check the user's manual of our human experience, which most of us have forgotten. We were all given a user's manual before you incarnated, and it has all of the guidelines to make this a really successful and a fun adventure. But most of us have forgotten where we placed it, and the way you access that user's manual is through meditation and through prayer. That's the way you gotta get to it. You can't find it on the internet. You'll find some things that will guide you to that. But in order to actually experience it, you must embody it. And the only way to embody it is to have a unique, individualized expression of that experience through you. Nobody can ride the bike for you. Nobody can become enlightened for you. You must do that. You must cultivate that. And so there are certain guidelines. That's what you'll find on the internet. You'll find lots of guidelines, and you'll find a lot of erroneous information. So caveat emptor, buyer beware, because you don't want to fall on the erroneous information. The erroneous information is going to say that there's only a chosen select few that will make it into the kingdom of heaven. Erroneous interpretations are what those are. There are also, erroneous interpretations that say that, we're going to be greeted by the 7 virgins, and that some people are taking that from the egoic standpoint of, ooh, gosh, I'm gonna get these beautiful virgins, and it's like, no. What a virgin are the pure qualities of the divine. That's what you're going to be greeted with, is the purest, holiest qualities. It has nothing to do about getting down and dirty, I will tell you that. It has everything to do. It has everything to do with becoming one and more connected to the grace and the beauty and owning your awareness in the divine. And so that's what we're here to do. And for, most of you know that for, the first couple decades of my life, I spent my journey sleepwalking, and I was completely unaware of any of this until one mystical, magical day when it all changed. And when it all changed, the discovery and the adventure, and it just engulfed me. And we want to allow this to be an adventure. And yes, do we ever come across things that seem like enormous hurdles? Do we ever come across a health challenge? Do we ever come across a relationship challenge? Do we ever come across a financial challenge, a creative challenge, or even a self-love challenge? Most of us have self-love challenges and we don't even know it's there. Most of us have a lot of things encoded in our cellular memory, in the subconscious or in the trauma body that we're completely unaware of. And our job is to become aware and to be liberated from that. We do it individually and we do it as a collective. And so the collective right now is mirroring back a lot of crazy things. And as you look back over history, there was a time in history going back about 1,500 to 2,000 years ago where we were in the dark ages, the middle ages, and there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of control, a lot of misinterpretation, a lot of people that wanted to use dogma and control over other people as a way to suppress the emergence of the divine into the truth. Because the ego likes to control things, and it's not a bad thing. But the ego is trying to control its safety. It's trying to control and save its own life, because the ego doesn't always know that we are eternal beings of light. The ego doesn't always know that cooperation is the basis of all life. And when when it was said that it is survival of the fittest, as you go on to read the rest of that statement, it is in cooperation that is the highest form of thriving. So whether that cooperation is amongst individuals or amongst the cells in your body, we want to experience that divine heavenly cooperation, not as a polite kindness. Oh, I'm so nice to meet you, blah, 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 and there's one of those people, one of your frenemies in your life, and they really irritate you, so you're kind and courteous. That's not on the path of enlightenment. On the path of enlightenment is compassion and understanding. And during the Dark Ages, all of a sudden around, as those times were coming to an end and a collective, now humanity has been evolving for thousands of years, approximately 10,000 or so, And you can see the evolution. Once upon a time, we used to be primarily concerned about physical things in our beingness. And back in the several thousands of years ago, a lot of healing that we were concentrating on had to do with physical healing, because physical healing can be something that it'll grab your awareness. And having healed through a lot of physical things over my life, I understand how it can, when something grabs you physically, it really grabs your attention. But it wants to wake you up. It wants to wake you up to a truth that will set you free. There is no punishment. There is no hurt. There is no pain. There is no suffering in the mind of God. There is only freedom, liberation, bliss, and beauty, and we are to seek and find it. That is what cultivating heaven is. That is what the human experience is. The human experience is to liberate ourselves. And around the 1700s, there was what we call the Age of Enlightenment started to arise. And people like Newton and even Thomas Jefferson were some of the people that were starting to cultivate. And the forefathers of our movement, if we go back to the Mary Baker Eddies and the Ernest Holmes and some of the other forefathers and foremothers of our movement, the Age of Enlightenment, which is always happening. The age of the darkness and the age of enlightenment are always happening all the time in the human experience, but our job is to hold to the age of enlightenment. And there was a saying back in the age of enlightenment that emerged, sapere aude, which was dare to know. You have to dare to know. You have to be daring enough to explore what is going on in your life. And that was the slogan, so to speak, of the Age of Enlightenment, was to sapere aude, to dare to know. And I am asking you today, dare to know the truth that will set you free in any given situation. And to also remember that we don't want to become accustomed to the status quo. Because if you become accustomed to the status quo, whether it's something going on physically in your body that's, some people actually allow certain physical ailments in their body. They just say, okay, I'm just gonna treat it. It could be physical, it could be emotional. And and this is where sometimes Western medicine fails us, where it's like Western medicine can be so great when it's inspired, when there's love and grace and beauty behind it, where a medication comes through that was inspired for the highest good of all beings. And then there are some that are looking just to make a buck. And they wouldn't mind if there was an illness that perpetuated itself so that they could sell a medication that didn't heal the illness, but just suppressed it. And so we don't want to participate in that. We don't want to participate. So, sometimes it can be okay if I need to lean into something that's going to get me over the hump, but I never want to rest in that. What I'm resting in is I'm returning to first cause, as we were talking about earlier, that first cause is that place where we turn to prayer, we turn to the divine. We want to rest in first cause, and always, as it says in Scripture, in all ways, we want to acknowledge God first and nothing else. Heaven is when we allow ourselves to acknowledge God first and then act upon that. So we want to open to that and allow ourselves, and this is where when we become still, we open to that. Now, the intention has to match the desire, and the desire has to match the intention. The desire, there's every single person within this room and anybody who's watching online or anywhere on the planet Earth, there is a desire from your soul seeking to be revealed into expression that is good, that is God. And when we become aware of that divine desire within ourselves and we match our intention with it, then we are on the path to liberation. We are on the path to healing. Now, it is super easy, but you wouldn't believe me if I told you this, but there are some people that actually try to avoid that. They get preoccupied saying, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough resources, I don't have enough support. Oh, you don't understand the things that I've got going on this week. I'm busy, busy, busy. And it's like, if you are in any way short on time, short on resources, short on prosperity, then it is time to slow down and get still. And it is a paradox because it is the absolute opposite of what you would think you need to do. So, there's a phenomenon that we want to be aware of while we're moving through the expansion of our soul in the human experience, and it's called noble cause corruption. Noble cause corruption is one of those things where if you were in the police force and you somehow knew in an investigation that there was something awry with one of the criminals, but you couldn't prove it through legal ways, and so maybe you fuss a little things, and maybe you put some evidence where there wasn't some evidence, but it's for a noble cause, because I know they're guilty, and so I'm going to do something like that. And on a lesser scale, we sometimes participate in our own individualized and noble cause corruption by, saying, I had a client once, and she has she was really starting to experience a lot of fatigue, a lot of burnout, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, which started to morph into anger. And she started getting angrier and angrier, and that's when she decided to seek help, because it was starting to take a toll on her family. And ironically, or coincidentally, in her family, she had a special needs son in her family. And so this noble cause corruption kind of infiltrated her beingness, because she just had to be super mom, and she was going to be there for him 24 hours a day, and she was going to do it, go. And so she did everything. I mean, there would be no argument in a court in the land. It was like she loved her son to Saturn and back and even beyond. That would not be in question, but she didn't take care of herself. And if you don't take care of yourself, and if you don't seek God first, so she was trying to help and be of support by doing. I'll do it, small me. And this is when we slip into the ego, where small me is going to take care of my son, where I'm actually being of a disservice. When we slip into noble cause corruption, we are being in malpractice. We are being of disservice to ourselves and to those around us, because we're buying into the erroneous idea that there's a lack of time, space, resources, and love to go around. I might even be buying into some of the race-conscious ideas about the disability that my child is going through, where I'm actually increasing it. And I've worked with other clients over the year. One person I had was somebody who had a child was with autism. And they were probably on the lower end of the spectrum. But all of a sudden, one day, the intention became that her and her son, this is a different person, wanted to go ahead, and they wanted to seek and find healing and revelation through truth in this. So it's like, okay, because you have a Western model that's going to tell you a whole bunch of things, and this is where you want to be aware that not everything you hear, even from qualified professionals, is the truth. You know the truth inside of you. You have the abilities, the capabilities, the gifts, and the talents to understand and know the truth. We do have to finesse them. We do have to bring them up out of ourselves. I think the thing that people want the most is they want to just have the experience where, this is what I used to think back when I first started this. It's like, okay, all I want is I just want to hear the voice of the divine going, Kieth, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go here, and then you're going to go there. And it's going to be very clear. It's going to be perfect, eloquent English. There's going to be no confusion, no misinterpretation, and that God is just going to guide me and direct me. So the fallacy there is, A, God is outside of me instead of inside of me. Because we know in our teachings that we are one with God. There's no God out there, and I'm subject to some laws that are going to keep me, or may not grant me, some liberation or the answered prayer in my life. We know, so that's the way I want it, but you cultivate that. And today I can tell you that providential guidance comes in 1,000 times clearer than it did 18 years ago. It comes in where you get an awareness and a knowingness, and you can feel it in your own beingness, because you're feeling the energy of your soul. And the energy of our soul is where we're one with the divine. And so we want to cultivate that. And that's where our community is, sometimes in the New Thought community, the spiritual centers of Christian Science, Science of Mind, Unity, Unitarian, and the Agape Associated communities, where we believe in empowering the individual, that you shall rise into mysticism and you shall enter the kingdom of heaven right here, not after we depart, because the kingdom of heaven, heaven on earth, is one of the most fabulous experiences, because you get to experience contrast in a heavenly way. And so the downside of contrast is when it's in a hellacious way, when we are starting to blame and shame other people, or when we have erroneous ideas about lack and limitation, and oh, the reason I'm not successful is because of this and this and this. If you have any becauses in your vocabulary, you want to grab them and see what's going on. How does my because align with my intention or my desire? I'm telling you, there are no excuses in God. There is only liberation and expansion of good, glory to greater glory. There's the only things that exist in that. It sounds sometimes too good to be true, but the too good to be true is true, and that's what we are seeking, and someone who is living it. I am a complete surrendered being who says yes all the time. I want to know and I want to grow. I want to sapere aude. I want to dare to know. And I will tell you, the only other no I want to know is I will not take no for an answer. Whenever something comes across my path that isn't in alignment with my desire, then I know I need to move into a different vibration of yes. I know that there's something within me that needs to clear so I can rise up into that. And so this mother that had her disabled child, she was so busy, and so when you start to diminish, when you operate from your own energy body, and you don't invite the Holy Spirit of God within you through prayer, through meditation, when you don't evoke that, you start on the path of diminishment or degeneration. And when you start to diminish and degenerate your own energy body, your energy quotient starts to go down, and that's when we get irritable, and that's when we get angry, and that's when we say the unkind words, because we're not full of the light of our whole full soul. We want to be full with that, and we want to be very mindful that we are paying attention to what comes to us. There's a lot of erroneous information. You've all witnessed it over the years, and you can even experience where you can see things change. You can remember years and years ago, this is going back quite a few years, decades actually, when saccharin came on the market as an artificial sweetener so that we could eat sweet things and not gain weight. So we're already in a whole mess of erroneous information just to begin there, because if you want sweet things, you want to know that you want sweet things in life, not from food. But just going to show the energy of intention, then all of a sudden somebody was hell-bent actually, on finding a connection between saccharin and cancer. And so all of a sudden, the warning labels came out, and they did all these tests, and they were looking, seeking, and finding how saccharin was connected to cancer. And then the labels went on. Then somebody, years later, not very many years later, said, you know what, I think there's something erroneous with that. I'm going to do some more tests. And they ran some more tests, and they discovered that it isn't associated with cancers, and the warning labels came off. That same experience and that same phenomenon happens. What you seek, you shall find. And that was a collective expression of that. The important thing is you are always seeking and finding the truth in your life. What is the truth telling you? You've heard me tell you many times how your body can't lie to you. And when my body talks to me, I listen. I listen to it, and I go and I bring it into prayer, and I bring it into meditation so that I can hear what it wants me to liberate to. Some things are really quick. Some things are miraculously spontaneous, and some things have taken a long time. And in the long time ones, we want to really evoke the energy of goodness, grace, and beauty, and adventure. That can seem really hard, but in the Buddhist teachings of non-attachment, that's where we start to apply that into our life. And so we want to be willing to seek the wisdom. Willingness is one of the key ingredients. We want to be willing to seek the wisdom. We want to be aware of noble cause corruption. So she was going out of her way to be the best mom ever and spending so much time and doing so many things. And then lo and behold, she started getting angry, and her family started to fall apart as a result of it. And then that's what woke her up, because the discomfort of the family, the discomfort of the anger. And then lo and behold, guess what? You can actually start to surrender into the win-win, where you can be there for your child and not feel that if you're not there every second of every day, that they're going to end up having a bad experience. God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniamorous with every single one of us, everywhere, every day. And we choose to evoke that and to allow that. And so finding the sweet spot, the balance point, where we can imply that, where I have to know that, what I would want to do is be very intentional. I want to know my children are safe. I want to seek and find health and wellness in them. I want to seek and find health and wellness with me without having to compromise. God does not compromise. God is win-win. We choose that. So we want to be willing, we want to be open to the wisdom, and we want to allow it to guide us and direct us, to unite us and connect us, so that we expand our own beingness. And the only one who can do it is you. So if you have excuses, I'm going to ask you to excuse your excuses, so that you can move on to growing into glory to greater glory in every area of your life. And I'm also going to say, making sure that we understand the correct awareness, the correct adaptation of no. No means that if something comes into our path that seems like it's saying, no, you ought not do that, but it doesn't match the vibration of your desire, then that is not a sign from God saying, no, you're not supposed to have that good in your life. That is a sign from God that you need to transmute and release something so that you may receive the good in your life. We are all entitled to it. So I'm going to just close, but as we worked, both the woman who was working with her child with autism and the other one with the other disability, as they started to allow themselves to thrive, as they worked on their own beingness and were able to thrive, their families were able to thrive. Now, again, I don't want anybody to misunderstand this. This isn't like, oh, it's all on the mom. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's all on you for your life. And it's all on the other people for their life. And then to be a beneficial presence so that we all complement and participate in well, I'm not putting it in quotes. We're participating in the real cooperation. Then we all thrive. As we rise, as I rise, all unto us rise. And that's what we're participating in. So I'm going to invite you to join me as we just do a couple other affirmations. And I'm just going to invite you to, as we do from time to time, just bring your hands both over your heart center. When we do this, we're bringing our awareness to our heart. Our heart is the nexus point where we can receive divine directioning and we can integrate heaven on earth. So we want to bring our awareness to our heart center. And I just want you to open up to the divine call of your soul. Don't seek it. All we're going to do is invite it, evoke it, and allow it. What is seeking to rise up and express through you that will expand your wellness, your goodness, your prosperity, your joy in every way, shape, and form, and that is win-win for everything and everyone. And as we hold that, you may feel it as an energy, you may get an inspired thought. Whatever you feel, the intention is that we are allowing ourselves to commune and connect with the Holy Spirit of God and the desire that comes from there through us uniquely. And I'm just going to ask you to repeat after me. I am willing and choose to follow the joy of my soul.
I am willing and choose to follow the joy of my soul.
I am willing and choose to cultivate heaven on earth.
I am willing and choose to cultivate heaven on earth.
I am willing and choose to know God in all things.
I am willing and choose to know God in all things.
I'm going to edit that one a little bit. I am willing and I choose to know God first in all things.
I am willing and I choose to know God first in all things.
I am willing and I choose to grow and heal
I am willing and choose to grow and heal
in benevolent and beautiful ways.
in benevolent and beautiful ways.
And as we stay centered in our heart, as we allow ourselves to commune and connect and expand our capacities to hold, know, feel, sense with the entirety of our sensorium, that we may see with God's eyes and hear with God's ears and feel with the sensations of the divine. We open to that, remembering that every one of us is coded and loaded with everything we need to understand the language of the divine, the language of our soul. Every single one of us has everything we need to be whole and to experience revelation. We open to that. I'm truly grateful to know that as we evoke the presence of God, the light, the love, the glory, the kingdom of heaven, as we remember that we are one with this, everything is possible in benevolent and beautiful ways. I am truly grateful to know that when we speak our prayer, this is how we participate in the activation of God, heaven on earth, to and through and as us. So I'm grateful to know that as we open to this, there is a nectar, the nectar that we call benevolent satiation and divine fulfillment. And as we allow that energy, as we evoke it and allow it to merge and converge with the desires, the authentic desires of our heart and soul, that we allow ourselves to be empowered to grow and glow in benevolent and beautiful ways. And we ground that. We must ground it. We must ground it in the realm of the physical, that which we call the earth realm, the human realm. We must bring it all the way down into our toes, into our bones, closer than our neck vein, our breathing, our hands and feet. The holy presence of God, of good, of grace, of beauty is. And we don't need to have any special extra anything in order for that to happen. We are the beloved. We have it, we allow it, and we let it be in a space of thanksgiving and devotional and abiding optimism, faith, and gratitude. And we simply allow it to be, claiming it so by saying, and so it is.
So it is.
Amen.
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 Amen. Aho. Ashe. Shalom. Hotep. And hallelujah. Yes. So we're going to have the ushers come forward, and as we move into our conscious time of giving, I'm going to actually, part of our spiritual community is that we are a collective consciousness. So when we're holding a consciousness, when I hold a consciousness for my own prosperity, I'm holding my consciousness for everybody's prosperity. Those are the higher levels of consciousness, where there's no me and you, there's a we. And we hold that vibration. I also want to highlight that tithing is not something we're ever going to ask you to participate and give. We're going to ask you to participate in consciousness. When consciousness moves you, then you're in nirvana. So we're always going to ask that whenever we give, we're giving from a place of consciousness. And that consciousness, tithing consciousness, is one of the highest vibrational frequencies in the human realm because it attaches to the infinite supply of all good. And if you want to play around with it, I advise you to really explore that energy because it is wild, it is good, and it is taking me from clipping coupons to a really great place. So that's my testimony, and as we do this, I'm going to just take a moment as you prepare your offering, your tithe, knowing that it does go to help us pay our bills. It goes to help us replace the $1,100 microphone that has disappeared, that is so much easier to wear than holding this. So we are going to know that that is manifesting itself, and as well as our new building and every other thing. And if you are online watching, I'm going to invite you to go to soulcenteroc.com and click on the donate button, or you can also text by going to call 669-342-2157. Text to donate. Go to soulcenteroc.com to donate and click on that button. The most rewarding gift you'll ever get from paying for something is when you lift your consciousness. And with that, I'm going to ask the ushers to go forward.